From June 1942, Japanese troops began building an airfield at Lunga Point on Guadalcanal Island, threatening the Allies' supply route between the US, Australia, and New Zealand. If the Japanese completed the airfield, they could use it to launch attacks on shipping and even invade Australia. So Allied leaders, including Admiral Ernest King, authorized an amphibious assault to seize the airfield. Codenamed Operation Watchtower, the attack began on August 7, 1942, when 11,000 U.S. Marines landed on Guadalcanal, Tulagi, and Florida Islands. The Marines quickly overwhelmed the Japanese defenders and secured the unfinished airfield, which they renamed Henderson Field. But soon, the Japanese began ferrying troops to the island via destroyers, launching relentless attacks to retake the airfield. The seas north of Guadalcanal became a battleground known as Ironbottom Sound, where 50 or more Allied and Japanese ships would eventually sink. From August 1942 to February 1943, 7 major naval battles were fought there, including the Battle of Savo Island on August 9, 1942, in which Japanese cruisers caught the unprepared Allied forces by surprise, sinking for heavy cruisers in just 30 minutes. It was America's worst naval defeat of the war. By October, the situation had stabilized. Henderson Field was within range of Japanese bombers, but Allied aircraft, dubbed the Cactus Air Force, denied Japan daylight naval control of the area. On November 12, 1942, a major engagement occurred. The U.S. battleships Washington and South Dakota sank the Japanese battleship Kirishima, halting Japan's last major reinforcement effort. Though tactically a draw, this battle was a strategic defeat for Japan. The U.S. Navy had decisively beaten back the Tokyo Express, the Japanese destroyer runs, that had been supplying troops to the island. The Japanese realized they could no longer reinforce their ground forces, and on February 9, 1943, they abandoned Guadalcanal. For the Marines on the ground, the fighting had been brutal. They faced starvation, disease, and relentless attacks. In the 3 major Japanese assaults on Henderson Field, 25,000 Japanese soldiers were killed. Yet despite such high casualties, the Japanese continued to attack until the very end. At least 3,500 were killed in the October offensive alone. By contrast, U.S. losses in October were 80 dead. Overall, Allied losses for the entire campaign were 7,100 killed, 29 ships sunk, and 615 aircraft lost. Japanese losses were far greater, 31,000 killed, including 25,000 ground troops, 38 ships sunk, and 683 aircraft destroyed. Many of the Marines who died on Guadalcanal were hastily buried in the jungle, and after the war, only 135 of the 798 missing were ever identified. 663 Marines remain unrecovered. Yet despite the terrible cost in lives and the strategic value of the island, Guadalcanal was only a minor diversion in the larger war in the Pacific. The real significance of the campaign was that it broke Japan's offensive capabilities and forced them onto the defensive. By February 1943, the Japanese had abandoned the island and shifted their strategy to defense, a role they would play for the rest of the war. Guadalcanal exposed fatal flaws in Japanese logistics and validated the Allies' amphibious warfare tactics. As one Japanese officer wrote, "This was the fork in the road." Along with Midway, Guadalcanal marked the transition from defense to offense and enabled the Solomon Islands, New Guinea, and Central Pacific campaigns. The annals of war may well search in vain for an equal. Admiral Ernest King on the naval battle of Guadalcanal. And why was Guadalcanal hell? Not just because of the unrelenting combat, but because of everything: the jungle rot, the nocturnal naval brawls, the grinding war of attrition that broke armies and navies alike. But the tough fighting forged the Allies' path to Tokyo. For here, the US proved it could defeat Japan's best. On land, at sea, and in the air. The South Pacific's Island of Death became the birthplace of Allied victory in the Pacific. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.